Welcome back to my garage and to this Christmas New Year's special video where we'll hopefully explain everything about what's going on, or at least give you a little bit more background information about what's going on. So typically people will make videos summarizing the year. This will be more of a video summarizing the whole journey, just to get people on board, because there's lots of confusion and I can understand why. First, there's been lots and lots of comments about how the crank looks bent at the end of my previous video, and I hadn't noticed until watching myself. It's not the crank that's bent, it's this bushing being it's not true. It's kind of a like it's skewed like this, and that's because this section is so thin to not interfere with the chain. And this was a case hardened bushing, and so I'll need to turn up a new one that's true, and then harden the whole thing properly so that it won't get because there's lots of force from this nut when you crank it down, and enough force to bend the whole crank when if something here is not straight. So that's what happened. So no catastrophe, just need to make a new one of these and make sure it's properly hard so that it won't because this was true, but then the thin section here got squished down. So no biggie. So as of today, we've done lots of modifications to the cylinder, and currently it's been stripped of the plating, and we're gonna bore it out and install a sleeve to fix some porting issues. We're gonna test it on a quick and dirty brake disc dyno. That brake disc dyno will be replaced with a water brake pretty soon though. I'll talk more about that later. I've collected a bunch of clicks all the way from the beginning 10 years ago, and I've made some notes to remember what's going on. And so let's have a look together, and maybe it'll give you a better idea of where I'm coming from and what's going on. So before all this, before the videos, before all this started, I've spent many years studying two-stroke engines and listening to people in knowledge about two-stroke engines and playing with two-stroke engines. So it's not that I didn't start out completely blank. I had spent much more time theorizing about two-stroke engines and actually building two-stroke engines, because it costs money and I didn't have any money. But this is where it started. So this is where it started. This is my Peugeot SPX, which I had hacked a speed fight cylinder, an air-cooled speed fight cylinder onto. And there's no exhaust or anything here. You can see there's a beer can as a muffler. And all those parts I got for free. And that bike I picked up in Sweden for 500 kroners, like 50 bucks. And here's that same bike, but now with a pipe and with a gearbox functioning and all that. And I was really surprised and happy about how it was working. That it worked at all. Because you gotta remember, at this point I didn't really have much tools and stuff. It was pretty much like screwdrivers and files and a hacksaw and JB Weld. Still using JB Weld. Now fast forward a little bit, and we've replaced that speed fight cylinder with another speed fight cylinder, but this time an air-cooled 50cc Arcel tuning kit, and also replaced the carb and various other stuff. And here's a test ride. It did about 110 kilometers an hour with that 50cc Arcel cylinder and without any porting or anything. And it ran fine like that for a long while, and I used it on a bunch of rallies and stuff. But I wanted more, so here's fast forward to when I built I carved my own cases with a grinder. I got them bored out for the bearings, and then I carved the ports and stuff, new rotary valve cases, and this is the some footage of it running. And here's a parallelogram mount with the new cases and a rotary valve on one side versus reed intake, which I had used up until then. And here's my first video where I'm talking to the camera.
Excuse my English, I'm a Norwegian, and I'm not very good at this kind of videos anyway, even if it was in Norwegian.
So this is what I consider where my channel started. I want to thank NordVPN for sponsoring this last video of the year. They've been with me for so long now, and I can't appreciate that enough. I'm really thankful for the support, NordVPN. NordVPN creates an encrypted tunnel for your data to travel in, so no one can spy on it and steal your data. That's the gist of it. I usually talk about how NordVPN is useful for pretending to be from somewhere else than where you're currently at, even at home or when you're traveling, so that you can access stuff like games and movies, series, get cheap plane tickets and all that stuff by pretending from being from somewhere else. But that's not what I'm going to focus on now. Today I'm going to focus on threat protection. Threat protection is a malicious URL blocker, which means it blocks you from clicking on links that takes you to malicious websites or downloads malicious content onto your computer. It scans the URLs and it prevents you from harming yourself from that stuff. It's a web track blocker, which means it blocks websites from tracking you and logging where you're traveling around on the web. It's an ad blocker, frees up web browser resources and prevents malvertising attacks. It's an URL trimmer, makes it easier for you to share links and also makes it harder for websites to track you when you're sharing links. It's a DNS filter. NordVPN's DNS servers blocks ads and malicious domains to from reaching your device. Look at it like kind of some air protection and a face shield and gloves for your internet traffic. Head to nordvpn.com/twostrokestuffing for a great deal. It's risk-free with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Thank you, NordVPN, and Happy New Year.
The engine moves in a more linear fashion compared to the swinging motion of the stock engine. To remove that plate and change weights or rollers without unscrewing the nut. I will drill out those two holes, or I'll wait for the slugs to arrive and check the diameters or the dimensions.
I experienced lots of problems with vibrations. I think the vibrations are magnified by the engine not being hard mounted, stiff mounted to the frame, but being able to move with that special single variated setup. And so I've experienced lots of issues with fuel foaming, as you'll see later. And so here I'm talking about how I'm gonna drill and weld in some tungsten slugs into the crank to change the balance factor. Because in this crank it was, I can't remember which crank it is, but the balance factor was like 90% with a 50cc piston, which is far too, creates lots of up and down vibrations. SPX with the rotary valve cases on the dyno, and soon you'll see the fuel foaming issue here. Really bad fuel foaming. Now we're seeing 14.5 horsepower. After a couple of During the years, there's been some like side quests when I've felt burnt out on the main project, which has always been the world's fastest two-stroke engine or world's most powerful. Back on the dyno, and this time on nitromethanol.
I may have melted the piston.
Running a little bit lean on nitromethanol is not a good idea. Another side quest, the motorized bike project. Someone sent me a motorized bike kit, and and we did some dyno testing and some modifications. It's still sitting here in the corner, and should revisit. There's been lots of interest in revisiting the motorized bike project. Someday.
But so far so good. I'll just keep on cutting and bring you back when it's done. Perfect.
Here I'm making a new cover for a new rotary valve, a carbon fiber rotary valve, a bigger rotary valve for the SPX engine. And as I haven't got a mill or a lathe or anything yet, I'm hand carving. And here you can see it running with the new rotary valve and actually making good power. But still, like a fuel fountain.
That's even more than the best run I had with the methanol and nitromethane before porting.
The last run you saw there was with a 30mm pumper carb, and we made almost 18 horsepower at the wheel on normal fuel with that carb, and that was the best ever for the SPX engine, and that was through the variator, so lots of loss and probably like 23 horsepower or something. And this is where I decided to not continue like fidgeting with that cylinder and engine, but start and create a completely new one. And that's when all those crazy ideas got implemented, like the 100% of bore exhaust port and all that stuff, which I think is the next step here.
There's a two-piece design here with the dome screwing into the rest of the piston body.
So here I'm talking about special captive ring piston and stuff, and how I'm gonna be able to run a 100% of bore exhaust port in a two-stroke cylinder. And here you can see me modeling the engine in CAD. And this was my second CAD project. It's not like it wasn't my second time in CAD, which some people have doubted. Well, it wasn't my second time doing CAD. It was my second project. The first one was a rectangular box. And then I went straight to designing the cylinder. And I spent weeks and my brain felt like it was going to explode. And that's why there was lots of like small things that went wrong during this process, because I was overwhelmed by the CAD, the whole CAD thing.
Investment powder I need for casting. We will try casting this cylinder, and the reason I haven't added material in the holes
3D printed a cylinder and was going to do did the lost PLA casting process. So here you can see me mounting the sprues and stuff and pouring the plaster and burning out the mold in my oven back here. This was before I got that big kiln. And that was my first casting attempt, and it actually went really well. I had too little metal, so I had to get more. And I think the 6th and 7th attempts were successes. I've got the cylinders up here.
There's almost no bubbles this time. And that's because I hammered the mold versus vibrating it like I did last time. I'll ship it off to Hollandaren for machining, and next time we'll have a look at the finished product.
And then I successfully plated my cylinders here at home in the garage with a nickel silicon carbide composite plating. And it actually went well. The second time it didn't go well when after stripping and replating. I don't think I got the cylinder clean enough, and it didn't. It started peeling.
I measured it to about 90 microns. I'm not going to tell you in this video because there's some uncertainty if this if we're going to pull through with this thing.
Well, here I'm talking about an unexpected journey, and that unexpected journey was going to Bonneville. Yep.
Okay, let's see if I can find my chicken and get checked in here.
Jim, Dan.
So these are the guys who have put this whole thing together. Basically, or Jim is the big, I'm not quite sure what you call it.
The original spark.
The driving force, the spark for this idea. Here in the United States. So, wish me luck. It starts, we were struggling for a bit there with getting it to fire. It is running fine, but it's losing, it's cutting out. I think it's the ignition. So there's a chance of this drying up. Hopefully. And yesterday we got the news that the World Finals is cancelled for this year.
Gas 50 cc's AG50.
Yeah.
So and then you would put
Was gonna race. Was the event
Scooter thing, right?
Yep.
100 miles an hour.
Wow. The record is about 90.
I race the Colorado hill climb stuff with dirt.
Yeah,
There's a lot of guys that build super banshees.
2, 3. There's 3 customers.
Oh yeah. And there's the shopper. A little tougher to hit. Yeah.
Choice is yours, man. Time is yours to take. Some sail upon the sea. Unfortunately, the event got rained out and we never got to test the bike at Bonneville. But a really great time, and I got to meet some really nice people regardless. So the trip was definitely worth it regardless of the event being cancelled. I had a great time. I'm taking the pulse signal from the crankcase this time versus the intake, like I've done on the... I got the new cases for the new engine and I started assembling and testing.
Looking.
But then at some point I felt really like burnt out on the whole internet thing, and I wanted to live a simple life for a while, and so I like did nothing but axe work for a long while, and it was really a really good thing for my mind, and definitely a good thing for my whole body. It was I've never been in that good of a shape as I was during that time, so I really should like cram in some axe work again to get back in shape.
This engine relies heavily on the pipe and resonance, even the intake. There's a secondary valveless intake, you can see there.
We're back at it now. I've acquired a CNC mill, which has revolutionized what I can do here. And here you can see those captive rings for the engine. And I've plated them, I think with I plated them with like electroless nickel plating. And the engine, you saw the engine running there. And here I'm testing a do-it-yourself EFI setup. And then sidetracked again with the brute force engine, which is a blown, externally scavenged two-stroke engine with a rotary exhaust valve. another sidetrack. 4-cylinder RC engine powered moped did not work very well. The crank broke, like after some tiny testing. Okay, let's get to work. And another side quest, the death bike. And this is still running, still here.
To spin up this pulley. I'll have to find or fabricate a primary clutch that I can mount on the crankshaft and that doesn't grab until the power band. Unless it's possible to lighten this enough for it to spin more freely.
So testing of the PIP engine on my new dyno. I forgot to mention, you can see it here. So I created this the brake dyno, this brake dyno, and with a load cell mounted on the engine, and the engine is free to rotate, so that I can measure torque directly on the engine and take all the transmission losses out of the equation. The problem with this is all the noise on the load cell because of the imbalance of the engine and stuff, and so it just doesn't work, or at least you need lots of filtering and stuff to make it work, and that's why we're not using that setup anymore. And we realized the engine was so weak it couldn't even pull a flywheel, and so something was wrong. A Make 50mm f1.7 take-in lens adapted to an SLR Magic and a Morphot 2X. And this is where I shifted over to filming with anamorphic lenses, which is what you're seeing me on now. Though a much better anamorphic setup than what we started with, because anamorphics are really expensive, so to be able to afford it you have to hack, or at least I have to hack together like lenses and stuff, and you need some experience to make that work good, which we're starting to see now, I think. And here we're back to basics now, trying to like come to my senses and go back to basics, and that's what this whole year has been about. So now we're back to the brake dyno, but now a different brake dyno, the brake disc dyno, and we'll see how that works. And as I said earlier, it will be replaced by a water brake in not a very long time, I think. Just as messy as always, and I'm fearing you're more confused now than what you was before watching this video, but anyways, hopefully not. And Happy New Year, and I'll see you next time.